Hi, my name is Easton, and my friends are just painfully typical. In a format like Commander, you have practically limitless possibilities in what you can build. There are just so many cards in the card pool and so many different archetypes, but my friends always stick to the exact same color pairings or archetypes constantly. They just seem to never get sick of it, which I guess is fine. I guess you can have your niche or whatever, but they've all expressed some sort of interest in another type of deck or a color combination, but have never actually built it. So I guess I will. I'm going to attempt to build a deck for four of my friends and have them play some games together and see how they all do against each other. But before then, I think I need to set a few ground rules. First, I'm going to be sure to proxy all of these decks. I don't want to go around spending actual money in this process because I'm making decks that maybe my friends aren't used to or color combinations that they haven't tried, so I don't want them to feel forced to like it just because I spent a bunch of money. Secondly, even though I'm proxying all these decks, I'm not going to make a deck that costs more than $50. My idea with this is that it'll help balance the power a bit, even though I know money isn't equivalent to power, but well, money doesn't hurt a deck. Let's just say that. Well, I also want them to be able to actually purchase these decks if they enjoy them and have them in real card form if they decide to down the line. And the third rule I'm going to set is that all of the decks must feature some sort of archetype or color combination that that friend hasn't tried before, but that they've shown interest in. So that way I'm not just throwing them in the deep end or anything like that. You see, because if I numbered my friends, it might seem like I like them in a certain order. At least with letters, it's more obtuse. Maybe I do like them in this order. I don't know, maybe something to consider. Friend A's favorite commander is Dihada, Binder of Wills, who is the Mardu planeswalker from the Legends Legacy precon. When I asked friend A what they love so much about Dihada, they answered with, well, they like the uptick, they like the downtick, and they like the ultimate. Very, very helpful, friend A. Thank you. Thank you for that. After talking to them for a bit, I think I understand where they're coming from more so. You see, the uptick ability works as a good offensive or defensive option. Making an indestructible blocker or attacker is super valuable. And the downtick works to dig further in the deck if they're needing to get more pieces or if their hand is starting to run dry. Not to mention, if they don't take anything, it just works as straight up ramp, which is kind of broken, but it's fun for them. And then, of course, that ultimate ability, while never really ever activated, is just fun to loom over everyone's heads and remind them that at any time they could steal everything and be super evil. I guess is what they enjoy. You see, friend A is a very thoughtful player. They like to have options. They like the versatility that Dihada provides, and they always like to have some sort of answer or some sort of way to overcome obstacles that are thrown their way. Which didn't surprise me when they said that they wanted to make some sort of, well, control deck. Control is just the worst to play against, let's be real. I want to do my fun stuff, and I don't want anyone to have anything to say about it. Honestly, I think the bigger problem is when there's a bunch of interaction, but no real ways to win the game. That's why I decided to make this a flicker deck. Now, while some flicker decks can just be value engines that just keep going and going and going with no end in sight, I made sure to make this one that has plenty of win cons and plenty of ways to get those win cons into their hand. When picking the commander for this flicker deck, I wanted to pick something simple, because I wanted friend A to focus more on the blink targets rather than the commander itself. So that's why I went with Rune of the Hidden Realms. A goodie but an oldie. Rune works more so as another way to flicker different high priority flicker targets, rather than being an actual flicker target itself. If I say flicker one more time, I might vomit. In total, this deck runs 31 different creatures, all with different enters effects that vary from card draw to removal to ramp to even some really big, cool, splashy win cons. For ramp, we have Wood Elves, Farhaven Elf, and Clifftop Lookout in order to get as many lands out as possible, of course. Cards like Cloud Blazer and Aether Channeler and the adorable Helpful Hunter can work to keep Friend A's hand nice and full. While classics such as Meteor Golem, Reclamation Sage, and Reflector Mage work as removal for anything pesky that might get in their way. And of course, to close out the game, we have Avenger of Zendikar, Gruff Triplets, and Enray's Forerunners to create a massive board or pump up that board and trample in for the win. Now for each deck, I decided to splash a little bit of budget for one cool splashy card. This is typically in the range of a $5 card that I thought that this particular friend might enjoy. And for friend A, I decided that their splashy card was going to be Maze of Ith, working as an awesome defensive option if any of their stuff is in the, process of being blinked or flickered. Maze of Ith will make sure that Friend A has a tight grasp over the tempo of combat in every game that it's played. I also put Panharmonica in the deck. You don't have to yell at me. You don't have to yell at me. I put it in the deck, I swear. I swear I put it in the deck. I'm not that... I know what I'm doing. I put it in the deck. Please don't... Okay. Okay. Friend B's current favorite commander is Squee the Immortal. Not Squee Dubious Monarch, no, not Squee Goblin Nabob, and no, not even Slimefoot and Squee. They like Squee the Immortal. Why, you might ask? I don't know. Squee has no real purpose in the deck other than being a funny named 3-drop that Friend B can drop down if they have nothing else to do, because this is just your classic mono-red goblin deck that dedicates its hand to the board for, better or for worse. Now, Friend B has told me before that they had some interest in a life gain deck, but not just a typical life gain deck that pillow forts and stays behind its cushy life total, but a life gain deck that used its life proactively to be on the offensive. And honestly, I love this idea, and after looking around, I think I found the perfect commander for it. Lycia Sanguine Tribune is an 8-mana Mardu vampire with First Strike and Lifelink that says, this spell costs 1 colorless mana less for each 1 life you've gained this turn. You can pay 5 life and put 3 1/1 counters on Lycia, but you can only activate it during your turn and only once each turn. With the constant gaining life and losing life, your life total is on a constant pendulum, and I think Friend B will really appreciate the wild ride that your life total can take in this deck. I'd say the main goal of the deck is to try to gain at least 5 life. Once you gain 5 life, Lycia becomes a 3-drop, and you want her down as soon as possible in order to activate her ability as often as you can. Of course, with it only being once per turn, the sooner you get her out, the more activations you'll be able to get. Now let's get into some low-to-the-ground ways that we can gain at least 5 life. Sunbeam Spellbomb, Sunspring Expedition, and Chaplain's Blessing all gain enough life to get Lycia out by turn 4. Yes, you heard that right. This 8-mana commander can be out in only 4 turns, which is massive. Now, once she's on the field, Friend B is going to be surely gaining tons of life from every swing in combat because she has, of course, lifelink. But what if they want to gain more? Rock's Faithbender, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and Elenda, Saint of Dusk are here just for that. Rock's Faithbender will double the output of any life gain. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is always good. And Elenda, Saint of Dusk can become more massive alongside Lycia, almost like a mini second commander, honestly. Now for Friend B's deck, I decided to splash on Toxic Deluge. It's a 3-mana board wipe that can take advantage of any spare life that Friend B will most likely have lying around, but it also works by killing the smaller creatures first, most likely leaving their commander alive in the aftermath. However, my favorite card in the deck, and I just had to mention it somewhere, is Chandra's Ignition. Because Chandra's Ignition specifically says that the creature itself deals the damage to all the opponents and creatures, Friend B will be gaining life for each instance of that if they pick their commander, because they have lifelink. which will cause just a massive health total swing. And I just find that so fun, and I cannot wait to see this pop off in a game. Friend C's favorite commander is Sisters of the Undead, aka Olivia Crimson Bride, and they love only two things: playing black and playing with creature types, aka tribal. Being locked in black has really limited the creature types that Friend C can play with, and they've shown tons of interest in making a cat tribal deck. So that's what I decided to go with. While I'm not choosing a new archetype for this one, I am choosing a new color. We're going to do a mono white cats deck. And there's a bit of a limitation that they kind of put on me while they were talking about this deck list. You see, they wanted to make a cat tribal deck that featured mostly, well, quadruped cats, and not, well, cats with six packs. Or cats with pecs. Or shirtless, muscly cats. They want just normal house cats. Nothing that would be seen at a con of sorts. And honestly, when I was putting this deck list together, I understood what they meant. Most of the best cats have six packs and pecs. But I wanted to stay true to their desires, so I made sure to include 19 quadruped cats in this deck. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The commander I decided to choose for this deck is Arabo, the First Fang, which is an awesome new legend from Foundations that just works perfectly, providing more bodies and of course pumping them up whenever they're on the field. Now let's jump into those 19, well, quadruped cats. My favorites of the quadrupeds are Regal Carkle, Glory Heath Lynx, and King of the Pride. However, you may have been able to tell at this point, but I may have splashed two, count them, two cats with pecs, or something similar. Look, it was really hard to make a full deck with just normal looking house cats, or even like tigers and lions, so I had to splash at least two of them, but I think these two were good choices. And they were Jazal Goldmane and Sky Knight Squire. Jazal can work as a late-game finisher to close things out with one massive swing, whereas Sky Knight Squire can become an absolutely massive beater in the sky if left unchecked for too long. Now, with running so many suboptimal cats because I didn't want them to have packs and six packs, I had to include a few, well, good cards to keep things moving along. Panharmonicon makes its second debut in this video, with it being able to give Friend C 2 cat tokens for every single cat that they play as long as their commander is out, and Pearl Medallion working as a mana discount on every single spell in their deck. And Ravnica at War provides an absolutely brutal board exile that will leave anything on their board completely untouched. And for the splashy card that I threw in this deck, it was Oketra's Monument. Almost working as a Pearl Medallion in this deck, discounting any of our cats. It provides a very substantial mana discount on our cats, while also providing human bodies, so we don't have to use our, cute kitties to block. We could just throw the man under the bus. Now, Friend D's favorite commander is Bello, Bard of the Brambles. They're a player that loves to put their foot on the gas, be the problem, and not let up until the very last second. They're a very chaotic player that loves being the problem and just throwing out as much damage as humanly possible, which is why I was pretty surprised when they showed so much interest in Baator, Ancestor's Voice. Baator feels like a balancing act. You want to gain just enough life to pump up your guys and lose just enough to bring back valuable targets from your graveyard. And so I had to ask them why they were so interested in Baator compared to so many other super aggro commanders that I've seen. And their answer was about what I expected. And I quote, "The effect is cool." My take on Baator is a bunch of low mana cost creatures that can sacrifice themselves at instant speed for different valuable effects. With them being low mana cost, my friend will be able to cast things like Read the Bones or different small life loss effects to bring them back and get incremental value throughout the game. And, of course, having plenty of ways to gain massive amounts of life all at once to make massive evasive beaters. Now let's look at some of those low-to-the-ground self-sacrificing creatures that I was talking about. We have Sakura Tribe Elder, Haywire Mite, and Children of Corliss. They each serve entirely different functions, but are all insanely easy to animate with Baitor, allowing Friend D tons of flexibility to grab what they need when they need it. Now for some ways to lose lots of life all at once, we have Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, Doom Whisperer, and Beladros Witherbloom. While simple cards such as Read the Bones, Night's Whisper, and all of the Pain Lands and Talismans in the deck allow for just enough life loss to grab any of these utility creatures that I spoke about earlier, or some of our small evasive threats. Augur Ilvek, Tormented Soul, and Changeling Outcast are all unblockable bodies that counters can be loaded onto to swing in for tons of unblockable damage. Now for the splashy card I chose for this deck, I chose Whip of Erebos, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. Giving lifelink to all of Friend D's creatures will allow for even more counters to be put on at the end step, while also working as a reanimation tool if, need be. Now, in the end, I actually did end up doing what I said I would, and I proxied every single one of these decks, cut them out, sleeved them up, and handed them to my friends and watched them play a game together, and I was pretty surprised by the results, honestly. In my opinion, the Cats deck really dominates the early game, whereas later in the game, if everybody's still alive by then, definitely Baitor takes the win on this one. As long as Baitor is left unchecked, the amount of value that can be accrued by bringing back a 2-drop every turn is pretty ridiculous. Even something as small as a Sakura Tribe Elder can become a big problem, ramping them an extra land every turn and working as a really good blocker. Not to mention, stacking counters on Baitor or one of the unblockable creatures can cause for insane life total swings each combat. Overall, I'm pretty proud of the decks that I made, and I really do think each of my friends really enjoyed receiving these decks. Taking the time to make these decks, cut them out, sleeve them, and present them to each of my friends really gave me time to reflect on how much this game means to me socially. I really do enjoy the small interactions with people at pre-releases or even, our weekly game nights with my long-standing friends. This is an excuse to hang out. It's an excuse to get to meet people and have something to talk about. The same way that, sports guys talk about football or basketball. I really do think this works as a really good social avenue for people. So honestly, I am going to have a small call to action at the end here. If you are watching this, talk to your friends and see what decks they might be interested in. That, of course, they're not going to build on their own. And then just build it for them. Surprise them with it and really see what they think. For all you know, you might have actually pushed them to actually make the commitment and build a deck that might actually end up tormenting you for months to come, or that might be your favorite deck that they ever play. I think something like that is genuinely more touching than you might initially expect, and you never really know how much it might mean to them. I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.